The following lesson is linked to Learning Outcome 1, Listening and Speaking. It addresses the assessment standard which requires learners to demonstrate knowledge of different forms of oral communication for social purposes. By the end of this lesson, learners should be able to initiate and sustain conversation by demonstrating appropriate turn-taking conventions, filling in gaps and encouraging where appropriate.
Hello and thank you for joining me. In this series of lessons, we are looking at oral communication. So far, we've compared spoken and written language, and we've taken a look at social interaction. In today's lesson, we are going to look at how to start a meaningful conversation. We all chat with one another all the time, and I'm sure that there are many of you who are really good at chatting. But there is a form of chatting called conversation, and that is a far more sophisticated way of communicating. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to start conversations in diverse and interesting ways. Our aim in today's lesson is to look at how we talk to people, both people we know and those we don't, and also to take a look at non-verbal cues, which help us to understand and get to know people better. Let's start by observing this interaction.
Do you like sports?
No, I don't like it.
Theater?
No, I don't like it.
Do you dance?
No, I'm not dancing.
Or you don't like music?
No, I don't like anything.
Now, I think you'll agree that this conversation is not really going anywhere. Take a look at this exchange and see if you think this one is any better.
So what kind of things do you do in your spare time?
I go out for movies. I also go clubbing and also meet with my friends.
Well, that's great. So what kind of movies do you like?
I actually like horror movies.
Jeez, well, that's great. I like action movies. So, do you know the movie Luck of the Draw? Have you ever seen it?
No, actually I haven't, but I've heard of it and I'd love to go watch it.
Okay, so can we go and watch it sometime?
No, sure. Yeah, let's do that.
Friday?
Friday's good.
Okay.
Did you notice that this conversation seemed to flow a lot easier and allowed both people to talk more openly? So what's the difference? I think that the difference lies in the use of questions. Here are two types of questions defined for you. Closed questions are questions that require a yes or no answer only. Open questions are questions that encourage a fuller, more open response. So, if we go back to our first dialogue, you'll see a perfect example of a closed question.
Do you like sports?
And here's an example of an open question.
So what kind of things do you do in your spare time?
There's not really much you can say if someone asks you if you like sport. You can really only give a yes or a no answer. So closed questions do not require you to give a reason for your answer. On the other hand, if someone asked you what kind of things you do in your free time, you would be able to give a number of responses. Now I want you to take a look at the following questions with me and see if you can tell whether they are closed or open questions. Which book did you prefer, Oliver Twist or The Jungle Book? Are you going to the party on Saturday night? What are you going to do when you leave school? Were you able to determine which were closed and which were open questions? Let's take another look together. Which book did you prefer, Oliver Twist or The Jungle Book? To the first question, you could respond by simply naming the book that you preferred, although the speaker does imply that you should give your reasons. Are you going to the party on Saturday night? The second question clearly requires only a yes, I'm going, or no, I'm not going response. What are you going to do when you leave school? Now this question clearly allows you to talk about your hopes for the future for as long as you like. So this is clearly an open question. So I think you'll agree that using open questions leads to a more meaningful conversation. But what do you do if you don't know someone and you'd like to speak to them and get to know them? Take a look at this. Hello, my name is Jonathan Turnbull. So? Now that's not a very effective way to start a conversation, is it? What about this example? Heaven must be missing an angel because you're here on earth. What? This is also not a very effective way to start a conversation. The line sounds very cliched and unoriginal. Take a look at the following example, which illustrates how to start an effective conversation. I noticed you from over there looking at those CDs. They're really good. Really? Do you listen to hip hop? Yes, I love it. By the way, my name's Joe. Hi Joe, I'm Lulu. So, do you think I should buy this CD? Yes, and you should take a listen to this one too. Okay, what else do you enjoy? I think that went rather well, don't you? Let's take a look at why Joe and Lulu managed to start a conversation and become comfortable with each other. Joe noticed something he had in common with Lulu and used it to speak to her. Then Lulu responded with a fairly open question. And clever Joe used his answer to introduce himself, which allowed Lulu to tell him her name too. This develops into a conversation about the type of music they both enjoy. Now that they've gotten the hard part over with, they can chat about anything. So, there are 3 things to consider when starting a conversation: types of questions, common interests, and personal introduction. How would this change according to the different people we meet though? Do you remember context? Context is the background information connected to a spoken text. All the characters we've seen so far today have been more or less the same age as each other, so it's fine that they're speaking quite informally. But as you know, contexts change all the time. Think about how you would start a conversation with someone older than you, whom you respect but don't know personally. Let's look at a more formal way of starting a conversation. My name is Kedi Molokane. Sir, I have admired you for a long time and wanted to meet you. I'm pleased to meet you, Kedi. What do you do? The convention is to introduce yourself formally and indicate that you know the person by reputation. My name is Kedi Molokane is your introduction, and by using a formal, respectful title to refer to this person, Sir, you indicate that you know the person by reputation. Then you can say that you admire him or her by saying something like, I've admired you for a long time and wanted to meet you. Now, if you remember, I mentioned something else about conversation at the very beginning of this lesson: non-verbal communication. In the next lesson on good conversation, we'll explore this idea and others to help you to speak easily and enjoyably to anyone. Until then, goodbye.
Yeah.